So today I'd like to go over quickly the idea of a binder, and this is just a message for my AP course specifically because there's some questions to why I need a binder. Why are we using Cornell notes? After my reflection of performance, student performance, over the past few years, in AP biology, comparing those that were successful to those that weren't, thinking deeply on the problems that have shown up repeatedly through the years, and I want to say the last couple years. Uh, the biggest component is organization. Organization, organization, organization. Now, I have and will, on my end, have study guides, weekly syllabi, and reference material for you. However, on the student end, uh, what ends up happening, even is that all these handouts, all these activities, etc., they get lost in the shuffle with the notes. The notes are not organized.
You missed me?
I am literally recording something, and you're late to whatever class you have. Notes, notes are disorganized. Important content not emphasized. And the student also is not able to reference older material. Handouts, or study guides. In an efficient manner. Not to mention, another key aspect is students often in the AP biology, not just this, we're not talking ninth grade here, AP biology cohorts often don't record important information. They don't reflect enough. They don't review and reflect enough. And I want to emphasize what I mean by reflect. Okay, so review, I think, should be obvious where you're reading, you're going over material. they've done in class. Most kids, they leave class, they're done. They're done. It's homework I'm trying to minimize, but homework assignments being minimized, it still doesn't mean you're done with biology as soon as you walk out. You should be reading and going over your material, over the notes, over the handouts, over the study guides. But more than that, you have to be able to reflect. And by reflect, I mean you must be able to ask yourself the question, do I understand it? Do I understand the concept? And that means reflect with a fellow student. Can you, so what task would answer that question? Can you successfully answer questions? On the topic. Another thing another idea that you might want to have with reflection is, can you do the task? And that just doesn't mean can you find standard deviation today? Can you identify the null hypothesis today? But can you go in a couple months, can you go back and do it again? And if you can't, where are you going to go find it? Well, in order to go find that information, without the unreasonable expectation, you're going to have to relearn everything every time you come up to a problem. Having a reference source, having a binder with all that information, all the reflection, all the records of the reading, of the class notes, of the labs, all the reductions, your rewording of the content in your own words, the breaking it down into the most important parts, that reduction, all the reviewing, all the times you and your friends, your study guide, your study group, or your parents and you, or you and I during office hours, or you and a tutor reviewing the material, all your reflection where you're asking yourself, do I understand the concept? Can I do the task? Can I apply the concept and the task to a real problem in biology? Just like the plant experimental data you were given by Mr. Green in class today, can you reflect on this? Can you do it? And if you can't, and part of reflection is not just writing down, oh, I can't do it or I can do it. Part of reflection is how do I revise? Right? How do I revise? How do I solve this problem if my answer is I don't know? So reflection, it leads to revision, where you are going back and correcting the misconception. You're asking an expert, you're clarifying, you're writing that down in your notes, you're correcting your notes. You can't do the task, well, then you go and get help, and then you do it with the person there in front of you, which makes it easier when you have a tutor. Then you go home and try it again and see, after dinner, out of the blue, test yourself. See if you can do it. And if you can't, go back and revise again. So I write these out in no particular order, because it depends on where you are, where you have to, which of these you have to do. Revise, reflect, reduce, review, or record. since you're doing all these constantly. But then the question is, after you've done all that, then you have something you can recite. That means going over and over and over again. Do it over and over. Because now you're doing it well. You're not just doing it, you're doing it correctly. And now that you know you're doing it correctly, you can make sure you get it correct by doing it over and over again, however many times it takes for you to feel confident that you got this, that you can do it on a test. You're gonna make minimal mistakes. All right, so that being said, a binder is, in my view, the only real way. And I've tried to allow people to use spiral notebooks, and I've tried to let them use their iPads. And what happens is they don't. You move on. I use an iPad for notes, as you can tell. That's not a problem for me because I do reflect and record and review. I will continue to do that, but what I find is the vast majority of students do not, if they don't have it in front of them. Plus, on top of that, it's not just your notes. Remember, as I said a minute ago, it's also handouts, it's study guides, it's practice work. Should all be in there in your binder, and it should be organized by date. And how can I check that? How can I make sure that all 30 AP kids are doing all this? I have to collect the note binder. I've just accepted that I have to collect them, and I have to look. Do they? And I'm gonna ask myself when I collect your binder, do they have everything in order by date? So I'll be looking for 1, the syllabus. That's the handout that I gave you. Then the day's notes. Then the handouts, class handouts. Then notes. Then teacher notes. There was a handout where I gave you the notes. Then video notes. Then let me go back. It starts here, 7. Then practice problem. Practice standard deviation problem. Then Mr. Green notes. Forgive me if I misspell his name. Then it's Mr. Anderson. It's not Green. I think it's Mr. Anderson. So I'm going to go and say Mr. Anderson. I believe that's his name. Then the practice problem he presented to you. So in order to get all these, and I'm going to flip through them, and I have 30 of you, but I also have 110 or so of the 9th and 10th graders, I need to open up the binder. I need to look at them. I need to look for these, up to now, 9 different binder items, hole punched and in your binder. Right? Hole punched and in your binder. So why not use a spiral notebook? The reason not to use a spiral notebook is it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And that's, you might say that's my opinion, that's true, but I am the teacher and I have had enough experience where I'm going to say I'm pretty confident that having a binder with these things in order, and if you want to organize them with tabs and or not or whatever, when I know that I can open up your binder and find the items in order, and the key here is by date, I will feel confident that the past, it will not repeat itself, and that I will be able to confidently move in, at least that I've done my best to prepare you, and that you're as organized as I can make you. And of course, summarizing forces you to put everything in perspective and to tie everything that you've covered up to that point together. So every time you summarize, you're making links. Every time you summarize, you're making links between the concepts. I understand you can do Cornell notes on an iPad, for instance, and keep your notes and then email to me. There's various issues with that. Number one, it's going to be difficult to get all the handouts in that notebook in order by date, which would require me to search for and make sure you've completed everything and have all your handouts, all your practice problems in there. The question of did they accomplish every? It's not about checking off a checklist of items completed and turned in. It's about you communicating to me that you understand the material, that you are on track for being successful in AP biology. That's what's key to me. It's not did they finish the the summer work, did they finish this activity, that activity. It's not about the number of points you got on any particular activity. It's about whether you understood the concepts, were you able to integrate them, were you able to organize them, can you find the material when you need to review for the material, to revise your material, to understand, to ask intelligent questions on the material. That is really what is key. And if you don't have a binder that allows you to organize all these things, then yeah, it's unfortunate, but I really feel like this is the only way to make it consistently, make everyone consistently successful. All right, I think that's my final decision. All right, thank you.